Oh, that is true. All right. You have a good
Hey, Greg. Hey, Greg. Can you help whenever there's questions, hand this to people during the Q&A portion? Awesome. All right. It's our makeshift microphone. Awesome. Thank you. There you go.
Yep.
Now, is this picture in picture on the screen? It's going to be everything that's here. Hello. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is our second Toledo Codes event this month. For those of you not familiar with Toledo Codes, we're an organization that we meet every month, usually once a month, every third Thursday, right here at the Loft. We always have free pizza, always have free sodas and drinks. So thank you again for coming. We do have a calendar here, luma.com/Toledo Codes, or you can go to our website, toledo.codes. We've got a whole slew of events here, not just our own, but events from all over the region. Keith Instone and myself and others have managed it. It's primarily Keith Instone. And so we've got a pretty good tagging system in terms of locations in Toledo, locations elsewhere, Cincinnati, Cleveland, etc. So if you have tech events that you would like listed on the calendar, please let us know. There's also a QR code over there to get access to join the calendar. That'll also subscribe you to the calendar. You'll get notifications for all of our events. So yeah, that's a little bit of background on Toledo Codes. So today we're here to talk about myself and Jeremy went to Google I/O. There's a few other panelists who will talk about their experience with Ohio X. And so yeah, we'll just jump right into it. My name is Justin Beaudry. I'm one of the founders of Toledo Codes. We're, along with one of the organizers, Jeremy here. So Toledo Codes is a little bit of an amalgam of other user groups that existed in Toledo. We're primarily Google Developer Group back. That's primarily one of the avenues that we operate under, in addition to like Toledo Web Professionals and WordPress Toledo. But myself and Jeremy went to Google I/O, and so we're going to do a little debrief here. So Jeremy's going to start us off. We'll do 15 minutes with him, 15 minutes with myself, and then I think in between each we'll do some questions. We'll leave some time for questions, like maybe 5 minutes for questions, and then we'll swap, and the folks from Ohio X will come up. So with that, please welcome Jeremy. Thank you.
Yeah, so as Justin said, we went to Google I/O, and we got that opportunity through Google, through being a Google Developer Group organizer. And so Greg, Bagish, and Justin and I do Toledo GDG. And so it was an incredible experience. You can kind of liken it to, I heard people explain it as like Coachella, for nerds. And so, but really it's kind of like more like Apple's WWDC, in the Google sphere. So they had all kinds of, they had a couple different keynotes, one for the journalists, one for, the developers, and all kinds of like things you can do and see. And so these are just a couple of things that I picked up on kind of through my lens as, a graphic designer, web developer, and I kind of work in the marketing scene. So I'm a senior web developer at Touchstone Digital. That's an agency of Matt Ave Group. And so let's get started. So the first thing that they kind of showed us was how they're morphing search in more ways than just regular Google search, but also Maps and YouTube. And so these are some of the things that we use right now to market towards, right? Like you can buy, ads, for both these platforms. There's lots of like things you can do to your business to make sure that your metadata, aligns with Maps. And what we're kind of seeing with like this agentic future, and you'll get the gist that Google very much thinks we have an agentic future ahead of us, but we're seeing less search queries of things like, hey, pizza, downtown Toledo, outdoor seating, and it could be something more like, hey, dinner, within 15 minutes, and make sure Bert can come. And is Bert a dog? Is Bert your brother-in-law? You don't know that. You can't get that from like a traditional search. And so, context is now king. And when you're talking to your personalized agents, you can see how there's going to be a shift in how you market, to those things. So, lucky for Google, I guess, and unlucky for us, they kind of own, these tools, right? Like, Google Maps, YouTube, Google Search. They are by far the dominant, platform in all three of those things. And so, it will be an interesting thing at Mad App. It's something that we're keeping an eye on, very closely, just to make sure that our customers are continuing to be relevant in these platforms. Same thing with regular Google search, except it's like even more immersive. And so right now you can do a Google search, and we're fairly used to this. You see the AI summary up at the top, right now, and sometimes that's enough for the user, to get the context that they need. And Google's kind of already, scraping your website in some way, to get that data. And so you might not even, your client might not even, get on your website. They might have already gotten what they need, from Google. And the new technology that they showed us is just going to make that is going to exasperate it. They're now shipping like mini apps, and so you're kind of now prompting in search terms that turn into apps that you can iterate on and save and interact with. And so it leads to just a way more dynamic marketing scene. It kind of rolls into their release of like Google Spark. And I actually won't get into that, but so now Google has officially released their kind of co-work, equivalent called Google Spark, and they're really like they kind of went in real hard on like, hey, you can have these agents, and you don't have to have your laptop open, and so it's like co-work plus dispatch, I guess, would be kind of what's going on. And so there's very much this idea of the layman, having agents that are working on their behalf while their browsers are closed. And so what that means for us is like web developers and marketers is we have to start thinking about how do we make our websites usable to agents. And there's a couple different things that are kind of being worked on. One of them that I think Google's heading up, but I think it has like fairly good traction into becoming an open standard, WebMCP. And so this is like writing in JavaScript hooks basically that provide context to an agent. So you might have a subscribe button or a buy button or anything like get information about a service button. And instead of the agent having to go and manually scrape markup, you could give it a tool to do that. And so that's something to keep an eye on. There's also a bunch of like other Chrome specific things that they're doing. More specific to like web dev, I took in a bunch of like web dev specific content. I love the modern web. I miss coding, front ends a little bit, but there's lots of like modern web tech that has come out, in the past 5 years, but really even like less than that, right? Like there's this idea of like baseline, and so all of the major vendors, kind of as soon as they adopt a web standard, it becomes baseline. And the problem with that is, we're getting some really nice features that are baseline, like popover and of course I can't think of any, but there's tons of them. But LLMs kind of don't know how to use those, because they're kind of trained historically on older data. And so one really cool thing that I thought was neat that Google is doing is something called Modern Web Guidance. I just want to kind of show you the front page here. It's a skill or a plugin for your agent, and it doesn't have to just be Gemini. It also works for Codex and Claude. But it's a skill that teaches the agent how to use modern web practices. Highly recommend. I've been putting that on my projects lately, and it's nice to see it use like modern web tech. The other thing is Chrome DevTools MCP. So now you can put your up to your instance of DevTools through Model Context Protocol, and now you can have your agent and your browser, seeing the same DevTools. Just an incredible development loop. That became stable at Google I/O. So there's a neat demo on that. I've increasingly become convinced that voice is finally good, and so I watched a really cool thing about ambient voice, but also what they call Gemini Live API. And so it's a conversational, live, multimodal API that you can do with Google. I was going to kind of show you. Oops. I sewed it into an app that we use inside NetApp. Just to give you an idea here.
Hey, Jeremy, what can I do for you today?
Hey, Maddie, I actually forgot to mark myself as work from home today. Can you do that for me?
No problem. I've drafted that for today. Just take a look at the card and tap confirm to submit it. Got it. That's all submitted for you. Anything else I can help with?
Yeah, I actually need to take a day off the third Thursday in November. Can you help me with that?
Sure thing. I've drafted that vacation request for November 19th, 2026.
So just a small example there, super easy to wire up, very quick. That's using that Google Live API. And then the other thing I just wanted to leave us with here, we're already short on time.
It looks like you canceled that request.
I did.
No worries at all. Did you?
All right, later, man. Ambient is the keyword there. So Justin and I also got to go to a Googler's house afterwards. His name is Martin, and he historically started the Google developer group, I think, right? Is that
Something like that. Yeah.
And so we got to talk to Ludovic Champenois, and he's actually Google App Engine lead, and so he's just kind of standing there in the corner. Justin and I had a 45-minute conversation with him, and just one thing that he kind of went back and forth with us was the idea that his first modem 40 plus years ago was 1200 baud.
Can you translate that for folks?
So that's 1200 bytes per second. And so you can imagine, one character back then might have been eight bits, 1 byte. So you can literally, the point is you can literally see as you're viewing the web, we'll call it the web, you can see the characters come in, this is core graphics, and we were all mesmerized by data coming in, right? But you could literally see it. And then we got 9600 and then 14.4, 28.8, 56, 6K, and now of course we're in, the gigabit world. But he likened that to kind of how AI's or how LLMs are talking to us now, we literally see the AI roll in, and so you can kind of see, and this is logarithmic or logarithmic. 1,200 baud, and here's kind of where we are now. Just you know, 2 factors, more than how we were, back then. And so just an early insight into like what the future might hold, right? Is we're seeing 1,200 baud right now, but soon it will be fiber, and LLMs will just be spitting back data as fast as we can regulate. That's all for me. So those are just kind of my insights at Google I/O. Thanks for listening.
Does anyone have any questions for Jeremy before he goes? We got a couple minutes for questions.
It's not a question, it's a comment. Maddie is the perfect name for the agent for Mad App.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a toss up between Maggie, because we're a Mad Ave group, and Maddie. So I did a coin toss. It was Maddie. So it fits. She'll also talk British if you tell her. So yeah. Anyone else? I actually met like some famous Googlers. We met one at an after party. That was my favorite part. But just getting to like see some of like the talks like in person, because I intake a lot of like Google developer videos, and so it was just neat being able to like see one of those in person. And so I saw maybe like 4 or 5 like Google web talks. Yeah, that was my favorite part.
What about you?
I will get to that after I get through my talk.
Yes.
In your eyes, what makes the modern web guidance unique and different from a skill?
Well, it actually is a skill, right? And so it's just a bunch of skills in a repository. And so, like how we do dialogue, with web, there's modern ways to do that, and there's old school JavaScript heavy ways. And modern web guidance will have a modern web dialogue skill, and it'll just hint it into the right direction. So yeah, it's a collection of skills.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I expected it to be that. I looked it up and I was like, yeah, it just seems like a skill.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a repository of skills, so it's very cool. Yeah,
Well, before you guys ask questions, we are streaming it, so if you can't wait till Greg comes along with my makeshift microphone.
Not being too familiar with Google I/O,
Yeah.
my impression of Google and AI, to make it useful for a lot of organizations, there's a certain amount of security and HIPAA compliance. Was there any discussion at your get-together about HIPAA compliance and security as it relates to data at rest and then being sent over the internet?
Not in any specific ones that I went to, although I know they like do Gemma.
I can do that actually.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's something they're thinking about. I didn't get any exposure to how they're thinking about that.
They've just released a giant, like they're pushing hard on Gemini Enterprise, and because they already have HIPAA, they have they support FHIR format and some of the other like HIPAA compliant data formats. So they are pushing hard on a sort of compliance related AI.
Thank you.
It'll only cost you 3x more.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Cool. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good.
Excuse my very, very dramatic title. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the things that I saw at I/O. Obviously, there's some overlap between what myself and Jeremy did, but I think one of the Jeremy hinted earlier at this idea of sort of what's going to happen in search now, as we had a demo at I/O of effectively you do a search. Let's say you're planning a wedding, you start looking for wedding planning. What Google Search is going to now do is generate a wedding planning application on your behalf during your search, right? And as you can imagine, what this is going to mean is we saw something similar to this back in the 2010 or so when Google started effectively taking people's images. There are a lot of businesses that would, made money just on getting people to come to their website via their images via Google search. Google took those images and put them on their own platform, and then you never went to the site to sort of see the image. I can foresee this sort of happening a little bit with Google search, right? These sort of bespoke, simple sort of SaaS applications in terms of wedding planning, or if you have a wedding and you have what are those registries, right? You can imagine Google search could dynamically generate a registry application for you on your behalf. So hence the dramatic title. I don't actually think it's the death of SaaS products, by the way. I'm just being a little tongue in cheek. And I think I played at this here. I'm going to move a little quickly because I think we're behind a little on time. But so effectively, if your application is simply a wrapper for some fetching and sorting and basic data rendering, Google search is going to do that for you. Google search is going to take your business from you effectively. And I think we see some of this already, with language models pumping out a bunch of these applications right now. There's going to be, obviously, we're seeing more SaaS applications being made because language models enable us to code faster. But obviously, myself, I believe that some of those things are obviously going to disappear as well as the foundational models sort of take over some of that, because they're obviously going to be capable of doing some of those as well. The other aspect, Demis Hassabis, he said this before, but he went up on stage and said, in 2 to 3 years, we'll have AGI. And so for those who don't know, AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. Typically, we hear the word AI. It's a bit of a misnomer. We don't actually have artificial intelligence. We have prediction systems that are really, really good at that, at doing statistics and prediction. That's effectively what language models are. But Demis said we're 2 to 3 years away from that. Now, yes, absolutely. He said that last year as well. He did say that last year. I think we've seen a leap in capabilities for these tools. Obviously, now we have world models that generate these sort of 3D worlds. We have video generation, we have image generation, we have music generation, we have text generation models. Google released these Omni models, which their Omni family models are effectively, inputs and outputs with text, video, music, and images, all within one model family. Now, likely this is just some sort of model routing system where you have an input classifier that just sort of, routes it to an appropriate model. But we're definitely on a path to having these sort of, obviously I think Omni is a pretty apt name for this. Although personally, I haven't found them very profound. At least, I don't know what your guys' experience in that is. So, do I think that we're 2 to 3 years away from AGI? No, I don't. I think, he wants us. He's saying that because, DeepMind has that. He's been saying that from the beginning. That was why he started DeepMind. So I think it's obviously in his best interest as a sort of shovel salesman to get us to buy into that. But I think still, I think it's obviously I'm personally pretty excited about the prospect of AGI and sort of singularity at some point. But I don't think it's anytime soon or any of that. But move quickly here. But this is probably the most interesting part for me. Their binaries are so large that they won't build anymore. Their version control system isn't performant enough to commit as frequently as they need to, which is something I never thought I would ever hear, right? Like, that's how many, if you use GitHub or Git, that's how many commits you can do per second. Now they are evaluating the performance of their version control systems because the models are, their harness, their sort of agent harness that's generating code is committing that frequently. So you've probably seen there's been a couple. I think Cursor released something around this. There was another organization that released some more version control software, which I just thought was really, really, really fascinating. And then the more interesting point, how do we handle the sort of junior engineer dilemma that we have, right? Because effectively organizations aren't necessarily hiring as many junior engineers as they were in the past. There is a pipeline of growth. You start as a junior engineer, and the way we delineate this is a junior engineer needs help to get their work done, right? So they need to be mentored. So we have to work with them. We have to pair code. We have to have workshops and making sure that they have all the information that they need to be able to do their job effectively. Then you get into sort of, you could call that software engineer level 1. Software engineer level 2, or sort of a middle tier software engineer. The expectation is now they can do work more on their own. They may need a little help, but mostly they can be autonomous and get their work done. And the definition of a senior engineer is someone who doesn't need help getting their work done, and they can also help others to get their work done as well. So we need this pipeline to effectively have engineers. Well, as I'm sure some of you have seen, a lot of companies have bought into this idea that we place software engineers with agents and LLMs. And for myself, I can tell you that is not true. We have tried it for the last 2 years. It's not true. You can't do it. Maybe in a few years you can do that. I still don't believe it. I don't think it's a path forward. But the interesting thing from this was that effectively what we have to do is our junior engineers, our computer science graduates, have to graduate with critical thinking skills. Like, obviously they need that already, but we need to emphasize that. And then 2, they're effectively engineering leaders from day 1. So they have to understand how to communicate to a team, because they're going to have a team of agents that can do their work on their behalf. That is going to be the future of software engineering. And how does universities enable that and support that education so that they have that path towards this? And this is something that Google is thinking about heavily, and something that even in actual reality, we fully embrace. AI. We're an AI first organization, but it's still a challenge in making sure that the engineers can have reliable output. And of course, we do this by having human in the loop. We have evaluation, and we set up standard ways we do our work so that we can make sure that we're reviewing and understanding it. But I thought this was really, really interesting, because this is not something that I never thought we'd have a future where we're writing Markdown for code, to generate code. And this is between that and having agents write all of our code for us. And then the other thing is that, now there is, writing code it's almost democratized. So effectively, almost anyone these days can sit down with Lovable, Base44, Google AI Studio, and generate an application. Now, there is I will predicate this to say, as a professional, there are serious security implications with this. I can tell you that I have vibe coded an application, and I have released it into production, and I have found critical vulnerabilities that would allow whole account takeovers, right? But I'm also a professional, so I went and evaluated this and made sure that some of these things were patched. But those, with the appropriate harness, and to translate that means, like, if you use Claude Code, for example, or Codex, one of these things, that's an agent harness. Effectively, it's a way of, it's a few things. It's a system prompt, it's a set of skills, et cetera, that help the agent stay on task and know what to do. But with an appropriate harness, with some of these review checks in place, and having sort of red teaming and adversarial agents that can evaluate code, there can be a future where your CEO can generate an app, or anybody, a high schooler, can generate an application. And so what does that mean for the future of software development? To me, and this is totally, I don't know, I don't think anybody does, but I don't think software engineering is going away. It's going to change, much like typesetters were a thing. At some point, somebody put little things into a machine, stamped it into a newspaper, and then we found other ways of doing that. And I think that just like those fields, we're going to have a future software engineer that is, again, overseeing a fleet of agents who are generating code on their behalf. I think I'm a little bit over, I'm still good on time here. What's that? So the other bit is this Google released a product called Gemini Spark. I'm just going to be totally blunt that I find it utterly useless. It is complete trash, to be honest. But that's totally my opinion, But I have, I'm a beta user of it. It is trying to get to that point where it can do what Claude Cowork is doing, but there's a question between the two. I would definitely suggest using Claude Cowork over Gemini Spark. Which again, if you use pay for the $100 tier of it, you get access to Gemini Spark. The idea is that you can enter a prompt, in plain English, it will do something on your behalf on a recurring loop. The other thing, this is another point that I really love on this, is that Google also released this thing within Gemini called the Daily Brief. I'm really excited about this idea because effectively the idea that we can eliminate sort of cognitive debt. Like I don't have to go through my email or my to-do list anymore. I can do something manage that on my behalf. And that idea is that, I come into work that morning, my agent messages me and says, hey, Justin, these are the top things that you should prioritize for the day. Right now, you should obviously go through and read that for yourself and evaluate that. But there will be a point where you can offload this to the agent and be comfortable with that. And I'm really excited about that because if you think about, like, for example, if you're in education and you're a teacher and you come into work, that day, you can immediately have a brief of, like, here's all the things that I need to worry about today, and have confidence knowing that these are the things that I should focus on, and offload a little bit of that from your own memory, which I think is really interesting. Again, I'm moving very, very quickly here. So that's all I have. That's all I have for this. Any thoughts or questions?
That's your cue. Oh, you. This is favorite part, right? Oh, yeah. What's your favorite?
What was your favorite part about attending the event?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a guy between talking to Chimpenois at the party. There was another gentleman who did the talk on software velocity and how we think about, what did he call it? He called it like software ecology, I think was the title of his talk. It was really fascinating. And I had a conversation with him afterwards, and I loved that conversation. We kind of talked about what we think the future of software engineering is like. So that was easily it, but it's more to do with like the energy of being in a place like that, where everyone is really dialed in and plugged into what's happening, and so you get to, every person you talk to, they have an interesting perspective on the way that they think that software and AI is going to go. So that to me was the best part, the human element.
Not everyone there is like all in on AI either.
That's right.
Healthy balance.
It is, yeah, which I think is great. It's an important part of the conversation. Oh, Gwen.
Speaking of this thing, with Google and Gemini, I'm sure we all have opinions of which models are better for specific things. What do you think Google will actually win at in comparison to the Anthropics and OpenAIs of the world?
I wouldn't count Google out, right? I mean, I think that they are, obviously behind right now. There was a point where they were ahead in November, I would say, where Gemini was a fantastic model. So I would not discount Google. I think, obviously they're a very large company. I think that they're really pushing towards this agentic aspect of building like autonomous things that can act on your behalf. And that's kind of my guess as to where it's going to go.
They have a pathway for it too, right?
Right, exactly.
Place where consumers go to search for something.
Exactly. They have all the context as well. They have your access to your email, your YouTube search, all of it. So I think that that's the play that they're going down right now.
I'm also a Claude user. I use Claude on the daily, but I will say I find the new Gemini model 3.5 Flash I extremely capable and extremely fast. Like it's well, I'm doing this anti-error. You try it.
No.
Okay. Yeah, so that's like Claude code.
Yeah, that's their harness that they have. Yeah.
It's staying fast. It's staying capable.
To that point, though, I would say that I still emphasize that everyone should run their own model evaluation. We should understand like what models are capable of what, and that means having your list of domain questions, whether in different modalities, whether that's image, video, music, or text.
Use cases.
Exactly. You should understand your use cases. You should run it against all the foundational model providers. And I highly suggest checking out some of the open weight models too, Qwen 3.6, Kimi K 2.6, and I don't know if it's called GLM 5.2. That's like outperforming Anthropic in some ways, which apparently because they stole it. So I think the key here is like definitely understand what models are good for what tasks you're doing.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for your nice presentation. I have a question regarding day one leadership. And also with that idea, do you think a place like Toledo can be like Silicon Valley because we have now all the AI tools. So do you think is it possible to be like Silicon Valley in Toledo very fast because we can do day one leadership? So what's your idea about?
I mean, I would love that future. I think that's a bit of, if you come ask me after this, what my vision for Toledo Codes is, that's my vision, is to build the pipeline of talent from junior high, high school to college and get them hired to local companies. But we first have to start attracting more tech companies here. Now, I know Darren Moore brought the drone company from Ukraine that was announced today by RGP. There's other things happening in terms of, I know Evan Marsh, Winhouse is trying to bring companies from South America here. So, and then I really think we just need, it all starts with, Silicon Valley started because Shock Lake Semiconductors exploded, right? And they were making chips in a furnace in their garage. So it all starts with that sort of catalyst. We kind of have that here a little bit between glass manufacturers and solar, not Solar City, First Solar. Thank you. So we have some of that, especially in like advanced manufacturing. In terms of like tech, I'm not sure yet, but I would certainly love that future, selfishly.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think if you squint,
Other questions?
Try and be succinct here because what I'm hearing is that we're releasing AI's skills to consumer, at least the Google model. And Microsoft is kind of abandoning some of the aspects of the end user and focusing on the corporate user with the same idea that you'll be able to have a group of skill sets or group of skills, group of agents running for you. But both cases, the security comes up, which is, Google already has your data, as you pointed out. They already have access to it, but now you're implicitly granting agency on your behalf. Did anything come out from the IO as far as how do you handle some level of, I guess, AI responsibility? I don't know how to put it. So
Yeah.
run amok from their perspective and create bigger issues.
I mean, I think it comes down to fundamentals, zero trust policy in your infrastructure. So your pieces of infrastructure should not trust other pieces of your own infrastructure. Your agents fundamentally should not trust each other. Google's already pushing towards it with enterprise in terms of having identity management. IAM, role in your agent. So ideally, you have a service account registered for each agent, and they sort of have a minimum viable the minimum set of permissions that they need to do the work that they need. And I think it starts with that. It starts with zero trust, and you build your fundamentals from there.
Sorry, I'll be quiet. That doesn't exist at the small business or the individual user model, though, because there's no zero trust because it's on your desktop in many cases already.
Yeah. In those cases, if people are running their OpenClaws or they're running their Hermes agents, I would just say don't. Don't. 100%. Even if you do know what you're doing, there can be often a little bit more dangerous because you think you know what you're doing, but you don't. And so I would argue just use Claude Cowork for those types of things, or start fiddling around with your own agent harness to accomplish those tasks.
keep an extra energy on hand.
And so we are out of time, so I'm gonna move on. We're like 15 minutes over where we're supposed to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. But thank you all so much for my very dramatic talk. I'm gonna welcome up Keith Instone, Gwen Betts. Yeah, let me get you guys my prep. Oh, Shanna.
Oh, Is that how you say it? We've been saying
Should.
Shona or Sheena?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So they.
Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah, I would guess it's Shanna too, because it's two ends. And I know someone with a similar name called Shanna. Same name. Yeah, two ends. Grammar would dictate, but
Right.
okay, please, we gotta scoop. Gotta scoop. Oh, wait, that's funny. There we go.
We in alignment.
Yeah.
So things like that. Yeah, I owe you an email and an introduction to Norm, which I will. We will do. I'm trying to move me. I'm sorry. I know, right? We're all just going to be hooked up here.
Let me get my little cheat sheet here.
I'm just going to talk about it, but I couldn't remember the name of the license I went to, so that's what I typed in.
Great. Thanks for that introduction or that view from Silicon Valley.
Oh,
We're going to now zoom into what's happening in Ohio
Yeah.
a little bit more. Some of the questions about like what's going on in Ohio around the tech ecosystem and everything. So my name's Keith Instone. I work part-time for Ohio X. It's a statewide tech trade association. So it's a collection of IT companies and other companies that hang out to help do business with each other. We don't have an equivalent in Northwest Ohio like to do in other parts. So Ohio X is sort of our trade association. Our big event of the year was in May at Ohio State. 800 people or so all gathered together talking about tech and various things. And so I'll go through a little bit of things on the program, but I want to spend more time talking to 3 people who attended it on what your experience was, why you went, make sure you mention your startup and the things that you got out of it. So since we're a little bit behind, we'll just start there. We'll just go down the line. Linda, Gwen, and then Alicia. Just a quick introduction on who you are, your startup, why you went, and then I'll ask you some questions about some of the sessions.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Melinda Alec. I'm the founder and president of the CoolPad, which is a temperature regulation case for iPads. So when you're using the iPads outdoors, it's extremely hot or cold, it will allow you to keep working for multiple hours and keep the iPad working. So I attended Ohio X. I did join as a small startup, and I just went for more knowledge and networking, really more than anything.
So for $100, you became a member,
Yes.
and then you got to attend, and we'll
Yes.
talk about all the things, the benefits that you got.
Mhm.
Gwen?
Hi, I'm Gwen Betts. I'm a co-founder and chief experience officer of a startup called Maro. We are a cybersecurity agent guardian that actually provides AI guardrail when you're using it and help you use AI safely. The easiest way I like to describe for sort of familiar with a tool called Grammarly is we're basically Grammarly, but for cybersecurity and knowing the right thing to do. I've been people who born and raised here in Toledo. I moved away to Boston to, chase my startup dreams, joined several startups, had a successful exit, worked at a big company up until co-founding this new thing with my business partners. And then I came back to Toledo because I think there is something special here. I think we have a lot of opportunity. And for those of us who moved away and came back, maybe we can bring that with us, that experience. And so when I consider the Ohio X events, which I love seeing, there is clearly energy around organizing something more here in Ohio. So I went in large part just to see what that energy was about, which surprised me in a good way, and to make more founder connections because I think it's folks like us that are going to make it happen.
Cool.
Hi, Alicia Wagner, founder and CEO of Sunrise, for the first AI-powered pediatric health platform, helping parents personalize health outcomes for kiddos using genetics and AI. And so I had a daughter that had massive health issues, many of them preventable and had we just had access to the right information earlier. So a lot of companies that are currently out there, a lot of this information is siloed. So bringing it together, and of course, right, the power of AI and data mining and what we'll be able to do will really be able to help kids who are currently 1 and 2 chronic disease in the United States be able to walk back. So one of the reasons that I went to Ohio X is, you know, I went to UT, I was in pharma for close to 10 years, got out, moved back to Toledo, Stone Valley Water in downtown. So I'm extremely interested in community and doing what's right for Toledo, and then sold it when my daughter's health issues got very bad. But when I came back out and decided what I wanted to do next after we were able to get her healed, not only did I see the need with what we're talking about here, but also if we're ever really move forward as Toledo, we this is it. Like, we have to come together within the tech ecosystem, and I think there's a lot of opportunity. And so again, one of the reasons I went, as many of you know, when you're in a startup, meeting people who are going through it with you, which I've met these two ridiculously amazing humans, but also, right, getting to know the right vendors. And, you know, I mean, AI is new, and we're going to talk, not new to some of you, but we're going to give them to some of the front runners. But there's so much. I think we all have a lot to learn from each other, and the support, really, if we're going to get off the ground, starts in this room.
So yeah.
Here, and thank you for having me.
So yeah, in-person events maybe matter more because we're doing so much online and remotely and things. So
It's touch grass.
right. So and actually visit other people face to face from across the state. So cool. So the first couple sessions, one of the themes at Ohio X events is usually economic development. So they have panelists for like from Mark Kwame with the Ohio Fund, who's vesting millions of dollars into local companies to make them successful, right? Thinking of it as, they call it a sovereign fund, right? So it's a fund that can only be spent to make Ohio companies better. If they find a really cool company in Chicago, they're not allowed to invest in it, right? And then there's a panel of somebody from Anduril, which is the defense company that's setting up in Columbus, and some other things. And then over lunch was this OH.io idea of let's make Columbus a hub by providing the marketing services for all the startups around the world, and they will end up locating in Columbus. So do you remember much from those economic development things? Just share a little bit about the economic development trends and things that we talked about. Whoever wants to go first.
I mean, Columbus is what Columbus is, right? And so I loved the OHIO for a couple of reasons. The commitment, it was like they were putting their roots down in Columbus ecosystem in Ohio. And so you could just feel the energy and passion and the camaraderie that was decided as a group. And so it made me think of Toledo, and, you know, AI has the propensity to take small companies and catapult them. It's not unrealistic to think that Toledo doesn't hold that capacity, that this could allow us to catapult and do something very similar in a short amount of time. And so that's what really had my attention. But the second component of the OHIO was, and what is his name?
Ratmir Timashev, I think. Right. So again, he's originally from Russia. He went to Ohio State, formed several software companies, extremely rich, and he's pumping that back into the Ohio innovation ecosystem.
But he really took an unmet need within the startup ecosystem and found a really creative way. And so that also had my attention, right? Like what exists here in Toledo. Tim Varner, who does our tech, he originated out of Toledo. It was interesting talking to him today because he's been contacted by a big company here in Toledo to do some consulting on AI. And it's reminding me of the opportunity, right? That exists again to just take that catapult concept and for Toledo to be able to do something really amazing with it.
And the previous panel was like, hey, let's copy Silicon Valley. This is a case where somebody in Ohio is doing something that nobody else in the world is doing, right? So there's a chance to lead the way, not just copy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would add, you know, if you would have asked me 15 years ago, plus when I moved away, like, could Toledo become a tech hub? And what I was told, what many of us have probably heard me talk about, is it requires commitment from governments, both in programs, in funding as well, in elevating, you know, certain economic developments to make it happen. And that'll revolve around what is our current identity. And one of the things that Toledo, for better or worse, identifies with is as a manufacturing hub. So I've heard actually Tom Bush, who is not here today, talk about similar things where, you know, we're going to be, if Toledo's going to be some kind of technological hub, it's probably wise to double down on what we're already strong at and figure out what does AI transformation look like in a manufacturing hub and how can we take advantage of that. And there were several startups at the Ohio Tech Summit who, you know, were also run by powerhouse women, by the way, who are doing exactly that. They're like taking the roots of their community and applying technology. But I think the other version of that, which, you know, you folks going to Google I/O and kind of seeing what it's like in SF, is there is a very real need for capital here as well, not just from the government. The government has to support it, tax code has to support it, economic development and talent programs have to support it. But we need real investors with real money here. The one thing I would say is like with the OH.io fund, it's $100 million. The idea is they're going to invest $1 million in seed stage companies, which makes a lot of sense, right? Like at first, if you would have asked me, I would have said $100 million each, right? And like, scheme of things, there's so much money in the world, there's so much money on the coast. But then I stepped back and thought, okay, they're trying to really seed companies. And imagine a world where you have 100 million and you are investing 1 million in each, right? Well, then that's 100 potential company seeds that you're planting. So I think like 10, 15 years ago, my biggest critique of this area was we actually didn't have investors. Investors were so not interested in us in this area. And there's just no way we'll grow the ecosystem without that. Whereas like now in the past few years, a lot of what Ohio X is doing, and then seeing investors, people who are either from here or had, you know, some meaningful relationship with this area coming back and trying to plant seeds with investment funds is a very positive sign and direction for us. Now, the biggest thing will always be how do we in Toledo take advantage of that and get some of that money versus all of it going to Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, even Dayton. That's what everyone in this room is really here for and what we should be responsible for.
Yeah.
Yes, I've talked to some investors like, yeah, the traditional model is $100 million at somebody in California with an ID on a napkin, right? Some other investors would rather invest in a company based in the Midwest or in Ohio that has already grounded out and has 5 paying customers already, right?
Well,
that's actually a smarter investment for some of them.
One way I think of it too is like, you know, we're all going through this right now. We're always fundraising at our sizes, right? Like they're looking for people to invest in. That's like any traditional investor. Yes, you have to have a valuable idea. You've got to have some defensive moat. You've got to be able to execute and do it. But that comes down to belief in the people. So I think bringing money here, investors coming here says they believe in the people here too.
So the afternoon, there were different breakout sessions. I'm curious which ones. There were some sessions that were around enterprise. So if you were a CIO type person, you were probably hanging out in that session. There was another track around talent. So again, how to develop the talent, how to build up the talent pipeline, but also one for growth and startup. So you guys probably went to the growth startup breakout. Do you remember anything about from pilot to purchase or standing out in the crowded markets or pivot partner or parish? Those were some of the sessions you guys might have gone to in the afternoon. You remember? Oh, okay, right. So you went because that's who you were selling into, right? Okay. But
I did the startup route, yeah.
Okay.
I just did the startup route.
Do you remember anything from those? I don't remember.
Yeah,
I didn't go to them, so I'm not sure.
All of it was really great information. I mean, I'm a much smaller startup, but I gleaned a lot of information from people who have already launched and grown, and they talked about, you know, where they went wrong and some of the mistakes they made, and then still how they overcame those and continue going. And I think just a general consensus of the entire Tech Summit was there were startups in the room like myself, really early, really young, and then there were, you know, C-suite executives in the room at the same time. And so everyone felt comfortable.
You were
like,
allowed to talk to each other and
you're right.
elbows with
Right,
each other.
exactly. So I love the opportunity. You don't generally find that a lot. So I thought that was really good. But the breakout sessions were good. We were able to ask questions easily. And I know one of the, you know, they talked about the growth of websites, and you know, they went through lots of different things, but and I'm not going to get all of it, but I did get great information from the panels and was able to go up and talk to the people that were on the panels afterwards.
Yeah, one was marketing PR, similar stuff that Jeremy talked about.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So what and then we'll hit the enterprise track
Yeah,
later.
I really enjoyed the pilot. You know, we all think about pilots and they sound so simple. And it was such a great reminder that they cost money. You know, and that they're not often well budgeted. And so it's just a really good reminder that not only we're doing pilots, right, but then of course working with the customer or client that we're doing the pilot with just to design those parameters, right? They can be costly, and so to not design those parameters up front with just, you know, the milestones and how often you're checking in, what are the goals and outcomes, so that way, right, things are falling off the rails. There are, instead of it being about blaming someone, right, being able to come back, this isn't about you, it's about what we agreed to, right? It's not happening. How do we reframe this? Points of contact, just stuff that obviously makes so much sense. But are great reminders, right? That just pilots are so incredibly important. Of course, help with early traction, for startup or new, you know, avenue of a startup product coming to market. But it just, again, foundations matter, and I think sometimes we all get so busy and forget, right? The foundations and the basics are what things set them up well for success. So I thought it was a really great reminder.
Yeah, because a lot of times when you're in this pilot mode, it's all about doing it fast, but you forget you're actually supposed to be learning something from the pilot. If you don't learn anything from the pilot, then it is a complete waste of time, right? You can learn faster, you can learn slow, so going fast is okay. But if you don't know what you're trying to learn, then you're not going to learn anything, and it'll just end up probably flopping. So, how about some tidbits from the enterprise track?
Yeah, so, you know, one of my favorite sessions actually was super well attended, and it was a bunch of CIOs talking about how they're bringing AI into their companies. And what actually really stood out to me, and I went after to talk to several of the panelists, was, you know, we'll hear the French talk track of, oh, we're, you know, investing in reskilling, and we're making sure that everyone's using AI in order to understand how to contend with it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the better conversation came when you just went up and talked to them. And part of the reason why I think that's important is because it was surprising to me on stage, they weren't saying very much like, hey, we don't want to lose the human element in this. These are people who are responsible for technology. They're people who, like, they're supposed to be living and breathing AI champions, like probably on LinkedIn, you know, telling you how about AI is going to change the world. We're so close to AGI, so close, right? But their main concern was actually, how do we actually keep our staff, or if we have to like lose our staff through this, how do we like help them land on their feet gracefully? And so I went up and asked a few folks after, because I think about this, like we help organizations with AI governance and AI security. And there are lots of KPIs and OKRs about how you're adopting AI, or at least like showing some kind of AI activity. But the opposite of how are you like protecting humans with AI and enabling them with AI and like more qualitative measures don't really exist. So I went up to a few of the CIOs and asked them this, and each had a really interesting response. One in particular was like, "Oh, I actually have a rubric for that." I'm like, we should talk about it. That's actually way more,
Right.
It's way more meaningful. And are you willing to share it? Like, maybe you should be sharing more of these things, because that's the kind of leadership I think we actually need right now from the people with the most power in the room to do so.
Great, yeah. Again, my background's in user experience. When I do these events, I don't really have to push for user needs or whatever. They're thinking about it as well, right? So again, at one event, we had the CIO of the state of Ohio, and somebody asked her, like, what keeps you up at night? What's the most important thing for you as the CIO for the state government? It's like making sure that we're making citizens' life better, right? It wasn't about any of the technology or anything. So,
Yeah, it's the real KPI for that.
right. And so again, you get a lot of that in the Midwest, these environments. That comes naturally, and you don't have to force it. Anything else you want to add before we open up for questions?
That was one of my major takeaways, right? The human element. And Justin, I don't know, I know that's something we're trying to talk about more locally. The second massive thing, maybe you'll agree with this too as well, is I could not believe, again, these are some of the top individuals in the state, right, who are responsible for AI. And one of the things that really left me walking away was they really have none of this figured out. Right. And so like that's what I was like, wow. So when I thought about like Toledo having a really big opportunity and like that catapult, I was just shocked at the humility and the vulnerability in all of these rooms that like nobody has this figured out. And I'm like, okay, right?
And to put it's going at a rate that is hard to keep up with the whole time. Mhm.
But again, like, like Silicon Valley isn't better right now, or like these big cities.
No,
and
they're all
buildings,
massively pressed right now.
Right.
The
money
the
left.
opportunity, I think sometimes in Toledo, it's easy to be like, well,
Yeah, yeah.
right, like, can we?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they must be smarter than us. No, they're not.
They've got more
No, they're
resources
not.
than us. They've got whatever than us, but like, the guy with Nationwide, what was his name?
Chetan Kandahari.
Thank you, again.
Yeah, so-
He, the big takeaway from his talk was that like, AI has to help us transform mindset. And as you talked about with our identity, and so I think as we're sitting here, we all get to know each other and continue to get together, is that the biggest takeaway from all of this is not AI, it's let's look at our mindset into it and what do we want to do with this. And so I love this event for many reasons, but it allowed me to understand that nobody's feet 100 steps ahead of us.
Right.
Right. Like we'll all let go, and it's just our mindset that
The one way to keep up is to go to these events, right? Because if you didn't go, then you wouldn't even know.
And can I add to that?
Yes.
I just want to add to that too. So I left Findlay, Ohio, and drove to Cleveland. Alicia left Toledo, drove to Cleveland, and we rode the hustle bus down to Columbus for this event. 18 founders on the bus. 18 of us met at that time. We get down to Ohio Tech just to submit, and Gwen is there, which I had met at an Ohio dinner at another time here in Toledo. So that's kind of how we all connected. But that
The bus.
element was really great. I think we need a hustle bus in Toledo, so I want to get that on the record.
Supposedly they're organizing one to Black Tech Week.
Okay.
So
Yes. Yes.
that might be a chance to get on a bus. I believe so.
Oh, great.
But we'll
Okay,
have multiple. But anyway,
We'll
but
talk about
again,
that, yeah.
the trip was important as the destination.
It was,
right?
and we got to talk to each other, learn. A lot of times as founders, we function in a silo, so we don't get to talk to people because we're in our homes. And when we are talking, we're on the phone with clients or sales, and it's not actual real conversations to learn from other founders. Which, again, so I'm the hard tech girl in the room. Everybody else is software. I'm in hard tech, which is it's like it's unique, right? Like not many people are doing that. So it's hard to find people, but I still glean so much information off of other founders and what they're doing that are further along in their stages. Being in Findlay, I have to tell you, Toledo's been a great
You're a little bit
ecosystem for me.
isolated there,
Yeah,
right?
I am. But it's been a great, and I'm in Columbus. I go to Cleveland. I come here. My manufacturer's here in Toledo. Like that's actually who manufactured my cases. And then just coming to more of these, it's just been great. So as much as what I know, Toledo still has a long way to go. I think that branching out, and I think it's here. I feel that momentum, and I've had great experiences here with that too.
And next month our geek dinner will be in Findlay. So
Yes,
that will help
I saw
out.
that. Thank you so much.
Questions?
Welcome.
We're running late, but we definitely have time for questions.
Just curious. So Utah on the end have AI startups, right? One thing that we have, like here in the Midwest, that they don't have in Silicon Valley are data centers, and they seem to be like a breeding ground for hating on AI. And I just wonder, because those are our residents, right, that are hating on the AI. Has it been a hard sell to your peers, who also see that on Facebook?
I think the data center is a proxy for anger that already exists both politically and in the economic situation, and what feels like the ill-gotten gains of AI training on collective expertise without anyone in this room getting anything back for it, right? So I would say our mission is unique because we are trying to, and I would say your mission is unique too, right? Like you're people serving missions, like trying to help people responsibly and safely use AI, and like as a guardian for you, because we do have this long-term vision that ultimately everyone's going to bring their agents everywhere, right? Agents are going to be a digital twin of themselves, and with open formats, we take them to corporate environments in and out, right? And so with that comes the need for privacy and for the agent and the technology to operate for you. And so I still think like maybe depending on the organization, what their mission is, maybe there might be some blowback or like general, unsupportive or, not feeling like we're doing something important. But I really think I haven't had that issue, or we haven't had that issue, because a lot of folks tend to really resonate with the mission of trying to use it as in the first place.
Well, I'm in pediatrics, and so I think politics going into that, but what I'm working on, a lot of the functional health type stuff, right? Pesticides, Wi-Fi, 5G, right? Things like that that are very controversial. So, for example, my daughter had vaccine injury, right? That was one of the pillars that started our health issue. And so things get very critical very quick. And so what I have found through my own experience, what we've been experienced is, yes, I heard that. Like, hey, you're into all this health stuff. Like, how could you possibly be into AI? Right? I mean, like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. And so what I try to do, and I'm also talking about one of the most polarizing topics on planet Earth right now, is to just listen, right? And I think there's a lot figured out right now. I actually do believe, right, like there's, it's not or, it's and. Like, how do we do this and understand how to do it responsibly? Like, it is moving fast, right? Like, is there a threshold in certain states or states, like proximity? Like, I don't know. I think we're figuring it out. I know, right? Like, you know, so I try to, again, we're figuring out so much, and not just with data centers, right? With everything. And so I find that meeting people where they're at and just listening to their concerns, and it really, honestly, and again, just even doing it with you, it just opens up conversation to understand different perspectives and what can we learn from each other? What do we need to pay attention? But yes, because this is the world I live in, and then now I'm a hypocrite, right? Because I want better health, but I'm in AI. So yes, I have heard it.
Maybe less property tax breaks or
Yeah. I mean, that's your point. Like, I think it's like, where is it coming from, right? Like, as a user experience practitioner at the heart too, like the questions I try to get to is like, where is this emotion really? What's the center of it? And I don't think the center of it's wrong. So the listening, I think, really matters. But also understanding that like technology is here, it's not going anywhere. AI is here, it's not going anywhere. And in fact, like whether we like it or not, there will be far more nefarious people that are going to learn how to use this, and for not so great intention that it does behoove us to figure out what is an ethical and responsible way to use it as well.
Okay.
In my county's case, I find it kind of ironic because it's a metadata center that's going in.
And then people are complaining about it on Facebook.
Right. But isn't the main complaint really the electricity pool too? I think that's a lot of it, and that we do the structure to maintain that. Yeah, it's all of it, right? Like, I think that is a valid concern. And I think they're doing nuclear development to kind of, which is also bringing up another red flag, obviously, to a lot of people. It's another bomb, if you will. So it's like, it's another area where we're trying to, expand the grid, if you will, of electricity so that it can support the data centers. And that's what the people that I know in Columbus, that's the ones that are against it. That's the complaint I get from them, is that it's all about our electricity's going up, everything's higher, and it's all because of these data centers. And, that's
Where
what
do
I
they
get.
go?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
communities do they
Right.
put it in the-
Yeah.
And again, it's not inevitable. Put down your phones, turn off Netflix, read a book, and go for a walk, and you won't need as many data centers.
Yeah.
Let's do another. So,
Which no one's going to say yes to.
Right.
right.
but that's a
Right.
decision.
We have a wonderful metro park system.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
going back a few years, there's a few in here who might remember those days during the initial web bubble about 30 years ago. The big impetus in Northwest Ohio was you had a lot of individual contributors with high skill sets, either going to the coast or working here, making large amounts of money. The focus was more on the individual. It sounds like today, that's what I really want to ask is, has the landscape shifted enough so we're able to look at the organizations having a chance in this area to take off versus just a few talented individuals? Has the landscape shifted?
So I'm going to step in for a second. Not being from Toledo, so it's easy for me to say this as a newcomer, kind of coming in and very novice, right? Like, I'm learning the city as we speak. I feel a vibrance happening. My daughter attended UT and graduated as well, so it's been a few years that I've been coming up. I see growth. I see, the river, side areas kind of being built up, and some park areas, obviously, that are great. So I'm seeing that infrastructure happening. As far as jobs go, I'm not sure about that part of it, But I feel that from a small town coming in here, I feel it reminded me, and I've said this to a couple other people, I moved to Columbus, Ohio in the 90s from a small town. And the energy that Columbus was then is what this feels like now. And Columbus is huge now. Like I go back, I'm like, oh, you know, this is not what I thought. And so I feel like the potential's here. The right people are making some of the right decisions. I think it's moving slow is what I'm hearing from a lot of people. I don't know. And again, I'm the one that's not in Toledo. So make sure you keep that in mind with the context of what I'm saying. But I do think that's what I see as a newcomer coming in and kind of see the growth and again, opportunities from someone with a smaller company.
So
But
I'll go next.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
You've been in this longer, you can.
And I've
go.
done the move away, come back thing too.
So I'm in a unique position, right? I was in corporate for, close to a decade. I had solo businesses. And I will say this, as somebody who owned a storefront in Toledo, Ohio, and wanted to invest in downtown Toledo, it was disappointing that 50% of our business was only from customers who were in from out of town over the weekend. That is where we made 70% of our business was over the weekend from people who were out of town. And so it's a valid question, right? Because now, as a founder who will be 1 year coming up in September for my tech startup, my goal is to raise my pre-seed round here. And it has been very difficult. I just had someone tell me, right, like I'm your biggest fan. Okay, well, I just need 10 checks right now for 10, right? And if you're my biggest fan, like,
Yeah.
so
me the
it's
money.
hard because, I keep being told I need to go to Atlanta, I need to go to Silicon Valley, I need to go to New York, I need to go everywhere. And I want to continue to believe that that is in fact not the case, but I'd be lying if I said that over the past 9 months that this hasn't been difficult here. And so, I want to get more involved, but I think it goes back to your point that it reminds me of the storefront, and we have to do a better job of saying this stuff out loud, that it's not where it needs to be right now. So if it's not, what are we going to do to support each other, and not just me, but come together, right? Like 10K checks. I mean, I have a handful of them now, but it should be this damn difficult. There's not even that many of us here who are raising. So if we can't even support the handful of individuals that are here, or figure out through different funds of the state, or make introductions, or say names when people aren't in rooms, like this just it's not going to work. The second part of that is I went through an accelerator within Jumpstart last year, right, and had access to startup capital. But then that's difficult because their funds have just been cut. And so the initial accelerator raise that we were supposed to have, I just got the email, right? It's 50K less than what it was supposed to be, right? I just budgeted my beta launch, and now I'm 50K less, right? And I'm struggling to raise $100,000 in Toledo. And so I'm reminded through the restaurant, right, that we aren't doing well as a community in general, supporting each other. And it reminds me, I want to say out loud, like, listen, I want to do a better job too. It's why I'm here. But we have to figure this out if we're ever going to move forward. And I don't know what that answer is yet either, but I know it's more of this, and it's figuring out what those, like you said, is it manufacturing? Like, what are we?
What's our collective identity?
What are we going to do?
What's our diversified identity? Because, like, one of the things I'll say, and I will answer your question, Mark, to be clear. When I moved to Boston, what was eye-opening is how diverse the economy was there, right? So obviously, our country, our whole world in both, dot-com bust and 2008, and then really, recession coming out of COVID, like everybody felt that. But what areas like Boston and even Silicon Valley, SF, really tied it over, because they didn't just have one primary economy that drove everything. They had many little, smaller verticals that kept them afloat, and that's true for the tech industry there too, like ed tech and cybersecurity and health tech and finance. These are all really big industries, and then sub-industries within tech in and of itself. So I think, on one hand, we say things like, well, Toledo is a manufacturing hub and our identity is so tied to that, let's double down there. But my critique is always like, it's got to be more than that, because if we're going to bring people here, it can't just be in manufacturing. The other thing I would say, Mark, is, this is kind of me versus the we question. What are the largest corporations in Toledo actually doing for the tech industry, right? What are they doing to bring up talent to establish more here? I mean, I'm not saying that they're responsible for all of this. Like, we collectively are here because we care and we want to do something. And we are showing up and trying to do something, right? To your point, like, it is hard to raise here. Like, it's incredibly difficult to raise here. And just in Ohio, but I see Ohio so dramatically needs wins, and it's going to come from the individual before it comes from the larger companies, because they have their shot right now. What are they doing? I'm just being honest.
Well, and forgive me if I didn't hear this clearly. You're saying that the hardest part is the central VC, the venture capital raising.
It's one of many.
I mean, you know, even for early stage companies, I mean, there's a process generally, right? Like, there's no VCs until you're getting on the ground, you have traction, you have seed. Now, can it happen? Of course, right? But generally, a lot of these early stage companies, like,
It's usually with proven operators already.
exactly.
Right. You already have,
But we're in that window. So, like, for example, here, Jumpstart just put us through a program, right? And now we're in this gray area where that was the whole point of the program, right? It's an accelerator, but now we're in the gray. We're pre-revenue, we're close, we're in beta, right? But we're not ready for VC. So we need these early stage checks, right? We need introductions to angels. They're not here.
I mean, by the way, angels, what I would say is, like, your first, both your first angels and then your first, like, institutional capital. They're not just giving you money. They're usually investors who are also in your industry and are making connections. They're making connections for your pilot for people who could be prospective customers. They're making potential M&A connections. They're making connections with larger institutional investors. So it's not just capital. It's also the mentorship and expertise and relationships and introductions in that industry.
Well, but here's where I'm having a cognitive dissonance. We live in an online world where we do remote meetings. I've had engineers
I feel like people.
in India, and England, and all over the United States. Why is it being told, oh, you have to go to Atlanta, or you have to go to Silicon
It's
Valley?
relationship building, right? I mean, it's, you know, yes, you can do a Zoom call, but, you know, you even need personal introductions to, like, a lot of angels who even talk to you. You have, I mean, it's a protocol, not all of them, but I would say 75%, at least from what I've learned, period.
Yeah.
So I'm not there, right, for those relationships. And so, again, this isn't end all be all, but there's a game and you have to play it. And we are, and I'm not in Columbus as much as I want to be, or
And I know that too, right? It's like,
I want to be, but I'm here. I have a family here,
Same.
right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be so damn difficult. Like, it shouldn't be that difficult anyways. And again, I know that's why we're here, and we're gonna figure it out, and I'm confident of that. But I think it's important to raise the problems so that we can start laying them out. And that's gonna be part of how we move forward. We gotta get the puzzle pieces out, put them in the right piles, so that we can start building the right thing.
for better or worse too, right? Like, I think COVID and the work from home era taught us we can work from anywhere, right? Like, I'm with you. I ran, global teams of over 100, staff and 7 products offices. And this is why I moved back home to Boston. Because I'm like, well, if I'm just going to be like traveling between these offices and then on Zoom calls all day, why do I need to pay like the crazy rent that I do here? Why can't I just move back home? And I did. But like, coming out of COVID and the kind of return to office mandates, what it showed me again is that I see it in SF right now, right? Like, no Silicon Valley investor wants to invest in anyone that they're only invested in SF. They don't want to invest in non-SF. Ohio is going to be similar, right? They want us to build their own hub to invest in Ohio. It's true for capital on the East Coast as well, right? There are all of these little hubs and niches where people want to invest in their local communities. And so on one hand, yeah, we are being told to go to where the money is at. On the other hand, if we're not willing to move there, which is what's driving both, whether it's capital, whether it's like jobs, opportunity, pay, what have you, a lot of the opportunity, we're returning to a world where it does kind of matter where you live, unless you stay where you're at and you try to grow it, which I think is what everyone here is trying to do.
And I back in the Ohio Tech Summit, that was just one way to help you build the connections. It's a small piece of the puzzle, right? Jumpstart is having a VC Fest in September. Black Tech Week in Cincinnati could be another one, right? So there are opportunities to just drive 3 hours away to build some of the connections rather than have to get on a plane. And again, if you find the local investors in Cincinnati, they're more likely to perhaps let you stay in Toledo for I'm just guessing,
And
right?
Melinda, to your point, I mean, the energy that you
Right.
use the word momentum, like it's happening across the state. Like
It is in Ohio in
And
general.
government's
Yes, I
showing up
agree.
for it too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The first line is almost always that, right?
Yeah.
But
But I,
Columbus, Cleveland,
Yeah.
Cincinnati, like the numbers are exponential. I mean,
Yeah.
they have 80 some companies
Right.
that are getting funded. And I think with the event that was in Columbus, it was 3 in Toledo, with JD from, I forget the name. He did a big Ohio overview and it was like, you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there were about 12 people overall from Northwest Ohio at a Tech Summit. 3 of them are up here. The other ones were busy, couldn't make it. But University of Toledo, I think, had some people there. BGSU had 3 people there. I talked with them. There were some other, somebody from Centricom in Finley and so on. So there's a group of folks from Northwest Ohio going to Columbus. The average Ohio my event I go to, sometimes I'm the only person from Northwest Ohio there, though, right? So some of it is we're going to have to show up with our neighbors until we can build up some more stuff here, right? So you're going to have to drive a couple hours, but at least you won't have to get on a plane. But if you just like stay in Finley and mope about it, it's not going to work.
They're coming.
Trains would be nice, but
coming.
we don't have trains.
They're
So
coming.
maybe one last question because we're way over on time, and then hopefully everybody will want to stick around to chat some more.
So my question really is, like, we're all here, right? This is maybe the first time I've learned about all 3 of your types of products. I like to engage with a larger audience. How do I show up for you? Like, you're always talking about having to go places to talk to people, and we're all here, and I think that we all have our own audiences, and we maybe don't even realize the power that we have. And so I want to know, how to show up for you. How do I do that?
Yeah, I know for us, I mean, again, you know, you hate to just be like, it's money, right? Yeah, no, but I mean,
I've got a different answer.
out of the checks that have come in, they have been introductions, right? And so, you know, I think the hard part right now, for someone like myself is, you know, they don't, when we're asking people, like, you know, people probably that do have checks, right? Like, you know, hey, set up a meeting with Alicia from Sunder Health. I met her, like, she could be really interesting to talk to you, right? That's how, you know, every single check has come in so far. They're not even my people. They've been introductions, and so I think that's really great. I have some of the ones that are still planning that are some of my people, but it doesn't always have to be anybody in the room with the check. It's the introduction to people who might want to hear about interesting things going on in Toledo, and you know, want to be a part of it. I mean, what we're doing has the potential, and I didn't hear startups say this, right? But I mean, we're looking at 200,000 lives, kids, over the next 5 years. Each birth cohort has the potential to accumulate adoption of $1 billion a year, right? I mean, that's out of Toledo, Ohio. So, you know, we're doing something that isn't even on the market yet. We're one of the first, and scientists, I just read an article, are all over the world right now bringing together genetics to study it. Well, we're past that. We're doing it. We're doing it, and you know, and so it's really amazing what we're up to. And so just being able to get warm introductions into people who might have $10,000 so that we can bring this together, get through our beta launch, and be ready to raise our seed, right? And so I want to do it Toledo as part of my goal. I want it to start and stay here. Again, as somebody who, you know, believes in this community, I just want I think of what we're trying to build. I think the power of what I'm talking about and why we're here, that's why the checks need to come from Toledo. So
What are your channels? What would would be the channel that I need to follow to know more about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here even with all of you, like it almost be like a speed dating event one time, right? Like I want to know the vendors that are in the room, and I want to know what you're doing, and like we almost need to on that same site, like what's the directory? Like, can we start building it? Like, who's raising? Who's doing AI? Who's doing accounting? Like, I would love to know that myself because I also want to give back, right? And give access to more individuals in this room. But yeah, I'd love to set up a one-to-one. I've got my data room. So for me, you know, it's early checks. And it would be more introductions, and I'd be willing to sit down with anyone in this room to learn more about Sunrun and what we're up to. But what do you think?
I'm just at a different place than they are. I was funded last September, but it was out of Magnet, which is in Cleveland. And that was after a long year of prep and many pitch revisions, and got to know from the big AMF group because they generally are investing in AI. And hard tech, has a slow ROI. I mean, it's 3 to 5 years for a return on investment versus AI is, supposedly 1 to 2. So I got the no originally, honestly, and then a group came back in, Plus Magnet, and kind of helped me out with that since it was a manufacturing product. So what would help myself? I'm more in I need to move units. Like I need to grow exponentially at this point. So I have traction in the market. I have clients that are already using them. I have the stories to do that. I'm wearing literally all the hats right now. And so for me, those introductions are always great as well. But anyone using iPads and using them in an extreme environment, whether that's cold, even the cold storage, like anyone in cold storage, or, I had a meeting in Atlanta with actually Coca-Cola. I actually scored that meeting through LinkedIn, which is crazy, but met with their procurement, and they said their bottling companies actually are using iPads and could probably benefit from the CoolPad. And there's a calculator on the website that actually will allow those individuals at a higher level to go out and really attach a dollar number to that. Like what, that proactive measure of the CoolPad actually turns into what, the cost of tech downtime is bigger than people think. And so by preventing it by proactively having the CoolPad on hand allows them to save so much money in the long run. So, and the return on investment is quick, which helps as well. So those things are out on the website, but though the best thing would be, I need to move units. That's really what it comes down to. And I want to say that sounds so businessy and tech. I mean, my goal is to help people though. The goal is to stop workflow interruptions, right? Like allow them to keep moving their job, because if anyone's using an iPad and it shuts down on them, it's so frustrating. They have to set it aside, let it go for 20 minutes, and then go back to their work. And it's just, if you're dealing with a client, a guest or a customer, it's interrupting what you're doing there. It's so there's frustration around it as well. So it really is a tool to help people. And that really is what started it all when I started, when I invented it a long time ago. So I know in this business world, I'm all push units, but it really is about the ultimate goal of like making workflow and that easier for people and to keep it consistent. So thanks for asking that.
I think we're done here. Stick around and have some more questions. Again, if you go to the Toledo Codes Luma calendar, there's a filter for Ohio X events. There's a dinner club. There's going to be a morning tech at the University of Toledo in September. So there's couple of local Ohio X events in addition to things that you can go to around the state, in addition to all the other things. Mark?
One final quick one.
Okay.
And it sounds like the answer, I think I know what I'm wrong yet. It used to be said that business is ultimately a human endeavor, and that seems applied to hybrid remote work, where we want to see. And I've been on both sides of that fence, and I've driven co-workers routinely just so I can see, because that's really the thing that work at. That's where I can actually get work done. How many Zoom calls? So something that still exists and is even stronger in the start as far as getting things accomplished.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
I mean, I've been all over the state and there's for meetings and demos, and no, I definitely think that's it. And I quite frankly, just speaking to me personally, I do better in person. I really do. I do better. You put me on a Zoom call or behind a camera and it's like, I'm awkward and I fumble and like the whole deal. But like, yeah,
I'm so much more dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. So, and no one can really talk about your product as well as you in person. I think it gives a better, you see the passion behind the person, where sometimes I think the camera and the, and the video can kind of dull that a little bit, because we tend to be a little more stoic in that. So I for me, it's valuable to be in person and have car will travel. Like I'm
There's so much happening over Zoom.
yeah, right.
Like
Mhm.
what was the one software like, oh gosh, it's like 10, 15 years ago, where it's like chat roulette, oh god, chat roulette. It's like you just don't have like chat roulette. You just have these meeting people.
Right.
Whereas a
Yeah.
person you do, right?
Yeah.
You never know what you're gonna get.
I know you brought up plastic. We're clearly not done. Like we just sit here.
Nobody has left the past hours. We'll just keep going. Right?
I'll just say this, and again, I get in trouble for saying it, but I'm not gonna shy away from it either, because I think we need to talk about it. And I honestly think it's an opportunity for Toledo, is female founders. And so we get 2 to 5% of VC and angel funding.
That's real.
And so
And by the way, in the past year and a half, it's under 1.3.
it's
Really?
Yes. And so I bring that up because
Did not know that.
we talk about traveling and doing different things, but I mean, this is not a lack of female founders. It's a lack of funding for female founders. And so I just want to say that in this room, like, this isn't asking for anything extra, but DEI is somewhat taking a bit of a backseat. And I think that's unfortunate. What I am saying is I appreciate the allyship and the group and the questions that have been asking. The reality is women aren't being funded. And we have some of the answers and solutions for some of the things that the world is absolutely needing now, that we have experiences to. But unfortunately, right, 90% of some of the male VCs, they just don't have context for what it is that I went through with my child with chronic disease, right? And so I just want to say that I'm appreciative for the questions that have been asked tonight and how to make some of those hands-off. And again, I'm not asking for special treatment, but I would like it to be a reminder that those introductions are really important, because we don't even have the funding. And in fact, it has declined from 2% down to 1.1. So I just want to say thank you for again creating space for us to be asking these questions and figuring out not only how to do startups, but honestly, I think it's something that if we can figure this out in Toledo, this could be a really great place for female founders.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we could work together, this could be where Ohio
If
female founders want to
if the
come.
if the coasts are sexist, then let's be the anti-sexist here. Let's do it better here, right? And that's one way that clearly needs to be done better, right? We can do that better.
Yeah.
So thank you for those questions.
So, again, thank you all.
Thank you.
So again, check out the Toledo Codes calendar for other stuff. Hang around and chat some more until folks have to go home.
Let's head back out there in the general area.
Wherever people want to hang out, if they're more tables with